Welcome to UrbanEx Real Talk Fitness Radio News, where we don't bring you just the trending news, but also the news you need to know to assist you in making healthier choices for yourself in the hopes that you will be successful in navigating the often murky waters of the health and fitness industry. I'm your host, Tiaja. We'll be back next week, but as promised, each month we're going to veer off the beaten path and offer you something a little bit different. Today I'm going to touch on several disturbing trends, and as always, one beacon of hope, particularly for those of us who believe growing old is a choice. To that end, I have personally coined a phrase that is gaining in popularity, which says, aging is a natural process, but growing old is a choice. Now the question is, what do you believe? It is Tuesday, April 30th, 2019. Let's flow. In our first story, we take a look at the latest biological threat that could potentially become more deadly than cancer. It is the new antibiotic-resistant superbug. Now, antibiotics aren't new. Many civilizations from ancient Egypt, China, Serbia, Greece, and Rome used topical applications of moldy bread for treating bacterial infections. The first person to directly document the use of molds to treat infections was John Parkinson. Antibiotics truly revolutionized medicine in the 20th century. Alexander Fleming discovered modern-day penicillin in 1928. After realizing the great potential there was in penicillin, Fleming pursued the challenge of how to market it and translate it into commercial use. With help from other biochemists, penicillin was finally available for widespread use. This was significantly beneficial during wartime. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for resistance to begin. Effectiveness and easy access have also led to their overuse, and some bacteria have developed resistance. Take a listen.
The most intriguing thing I found about this story was this one hospital in Washington, D.C. in America that went into lockdown because the superbug that infected that hospital was so aggressive, so virulent, that they had no way of stopping it. I mean, this thing they'd never heard of, number one. It was that ferocious. They ripped out the plumbing. They tried to gas the wards, try and disinfect it. They used bleach, but the bleach in the pipes didn't work, so they pulled out the plumbing. And still, this superbug spread and ended up infecting 17 people who were in isolated wards, so it kept on jumping. They couldn't control it. Here's the other fascinating thing, though, that really gripped me about it is this was kept top secret for a year. The hospital, which is one of the most sophisticated in America, just did not know how to handle this. They didn't know what type of superbug they were dealing with. So the doctors turned detectives, literally going through those wards to try and find the superbug and then identify what it was.
The truth is, the antibiotics that have protected us for so long are being defeated by increasingly smarter superbugs. The bacteria, which appears white, flourishes in the outside panels, which are antibiotic-free. At the first barrier, the E. coli spread stops. The drugs appear to be working. But then a mutant appears. It defeats the low concentration of antibiotics, and it doesn't stop there. The bacteria keeps spreading and evolving until it thrives in even the strongest possible antibiotic.
For decades now, antibiotics have been man's best friend. We've relied on them heavily. In fact, we've probably got too comfortable with them. Last year, only one new antibiotic was released onto the market. But the rise of the superbugs is going that way, just as the decline of antibiotics is going the other way. So we have this immunity to many diseases and infections and bacteria, but the superbugs are getting smarter and stronger. So the race is really on to try and find an alternative to antibiotics, which in Australia we're doing some pretty amazing work with, and also in America, and it's a very exciting field of medicine. So from a very alarming story and a very frightening story, superbugs, there is some remarkable research going on to try and find alternatives, but it's not necessarily antibiotics anymore.
In our second story, after the surprising and unfortunate stroke this past week of renowned director John Singleton, who was nominated for an Oscar for his Boys in the Hood film, a series of medical investigative reports have come out seeking answers as to why younger people are having strokes. Here's a quick medical update from CBS News.
Good morning. In today's Health Watch, strokes striking the young. An alarming new study published in the journal Neurology finds stroke is affecting Americans at younger ages than ever. Researchers looked at the occurrences of strokes in people between the ages of 20 and 54 for 3 one-year-long periods between 1993 and 2005. They found the average age of those who experienced the life-threatening illness fell from 71 years to 69. But more shocking is the percentage of stroke in people under the age of 55 grew from 13% in 1993 to 19% in 2005. Experts point to the rise in risk factors such as diabetes, obesity, and high cholesterol to explain the disturbing trend. Obesity rates continue to climb, with a recent report predicting 50% of adults will be technically obese by 2030. Now, stroke occurs when arteries of the brain become blocked or bleed and commonly results in paralysis or death. But the good news is that through diet, healthy lifestyle, and exercise, the vast majority of risk factors can be canceled out altogether. We all know that's not always easy, but it's well worth it. I'm Dr. Holly Phillips.
Science of eugenics, which is the science of improving a human population by controlled breeding to increase the occurrence of desirable heritable characteristics, was developed largely by Francis Galton as a method of improving the human race. It fell into disfavor only after the perversion of its doctrines by the Nazis. However, human tempering through genetic modification is still a viable field of study under the guise of medical advancement, disease prevention, and eradication. And though ethic violations are still policed by medical ethics boards, which is kind of like the fox watching the chicken coop, their international watchdog committees never seem to influence best practices in communist countries like China. So Chinese scientists continue to push the envelope of human gene tinkering. Some are already defending this latest move by Chinese scientists to put human brain cells into transgenic monkeys as a potential first step towards a medical breakthrough to combat degenerative brain diseases like Alzheimer's. Now, you and I may not get a vote, but we still have the power to agree or disagree with such ethically questionable research. The question is, do you believe this is ethical or not? I want you to decide for yourself. Here's the report.
A new study out of China is once again generating debate about the ethics of genetic re-engineering, this time involving animals implanted with human genes. RT correspondent John Huddy has more on the story.
I did not start this war.
It's a climactic scene from the Planet of the Apes, but this story isn't about that movie or a preview of even the next one, whenever that may be. This story is about real monkeys with real human genes. In a study published last month in the Chinese journal National Science Review, a group of Chinese scientists report that they created a new type of monkey with a human brain gene. The researchers say they implanted the so-called MCPH1 gene into the embryos of 11 transgenic rhesus monkeys. 6 of the monkeys died during the research, but 5 lived. According to the study, the surviving monkeys, quote, exhibited better short-term memory and shorter reaction time compared to other regular monkeys in the sample. They were tested with MRI brain scans and memory functions using colors and block pictures. While the 5 monkeys' brains were not larger than their counterparts, they did develop over a longer period, typical of human brains, particularly that of children. The scientists described their work as the first attempt to experimentally interrogate the genetic basis of the human brain origin using a transgenic monkey model, and it values the use of non-human primates in understanding human unique traits. Translation: to help determine how the human brain developed using a monkey. But some scientists contend that a study involving just 5 monkeys isn't large enough to garner conclusive results, and not everyone is happy about this type of science being performed in the first place. Many scientists contend that genetic re-engineering is a slippery slope ethically. University of Colorado bioethicist Jacqueline Glover, in an interview with the MIT Technology Review, even compared the experiment to Planet of the Apes, saying, quote, to humanize them is to cause harm. Of the 19 scientists listed in the study, only one is a Westerner, Dr. Martin Steiner, a University of North Carolina computer scientist, who said his role was limited to showing Chinese students how to pull information from MRI images, and that he's considering taking his name off the study. Steiner told MIT that there are a bunch of aspects of this study that you could not do in the U.S. It raised issues about the type of research and whether the animals were properly cared for. Maybe so, but it's unlikely these type of studies will stop. China has fewer restrictions than the United States, Europe, and Canada. In fact, one of the lead scientists involved in this latest experiment, Dr. Su, who is a geneticist at the Kunming Institute of Zoology, says he's already added the gene to other monkeys and is waiting for the results.
Take your stinking paw off me, you damn dirty ape!
For the news with Rick Sanchez, John Huddy, RT.
And finally, I've been saying for decades that aging is a natural process, but growing old is a choice. It's interesting. When I first began stating this publicly, I thought that it would be received with open arms and high fives. It wasn't. When I first started wearing the t-shirts with this saying, I received mixed reviews. And why is that? I believe it's because people have been brainwashed into believing that once you hit a certain age that you are old, which is to say, you are no longer young and useful. That might be true in the eyes of this society, but it isn't true throughout the world. In many cultures, the elderly are still honored, even revered. But I digress. Last week, I posted a debate from a show called Undisputed, which airs on the FS1 network. It was a rather heated debate between sports analyst Skip Bayless and former Football Hall of Famer Shannon Sharpe regarding something Tom Brady's trainer said about Tom Brady. Go check it out in our archives at tiaje.podbean.com. In short, Tom Brady's trainer believes that Tom Brady, who is 41, can play in the NFL at a high level until he's 50. He went on to say, this is because our brains do not know how old we are unless we tell them. But is that true? Are we really as young as we think we are and feel? Again, you decide. But take a listen to what the so-called experts are saying.
As the old saying goes, you are as young as you feel. And according to a new study, there's actually truth behind that expression. New research found people who feel younger than they are have fewer signs of aging in their brain compared to those who feel older. So researchers at Seoul National University in South Korea, they gave a group of people aged 59 to 84 MRI scans. They found that those who said they felt younger had more gray matter in their brains. The gray matter is that area that helps you think. They had better memory in their tests. It's brilliant to be able to actually show tangible evidence that thinking and feeling younger keeps you young.
Do you think it actually keeps them young, or was just reflective of the fact that maybe these are people with healthier lifestyles, who are more active, both physically and mentally, and therefore they felt better and it was reflected in their
All
eyes.
of it, I think.
And which came first? They all go hand in hand.
Because if you think yourself younger, you're more apt to be active. True. Instead of, what a lot of us do is we'll say, oh, I used to do that. For instance, I used to be able to do toga. Now I can't.
Now here are my 2 cents, and feel free to keep the change. When younger people begin to be afflicted with diseases we normally associate with aging, then something is seriously wrong. The knee-jerk reflex is to point fingers at the environment, water quality, air quality, or the nutritional quality of the foods we eat. But what is often overlooked in this discussion is the quality of life. What we eat and where we live is important, but so too is what we think about. The problem in this society is we too often believe that the pursuit of learning stops once we graduate high school or college. With the advent of the 24/7 news cycle and social media, there is now such a thing as passive learning. That is, we are constantly being exposed to experiences and ideas that we simply accept without ever giving thought to their meaning. One example of this is the like button on Facebook. I mean, how many times have you just liked something because it was on a friend's page or it was sent to you for you to like without giving any thought to why you liked it, or even if you should have? Passive learning. It is passive learning and thinking that predisposes us to eat mindlessly or to say nothing about things we disagree with, to just go with the flow. But there is a price to pay for not protecting your eye and ear gates. Scientific proof isn't always required for what you know intuitively. There are certain types of music, for instance, that unsettles you. It's irritating to listen to. There are certain foods you eat that do the same. There are things you think about that bring about depression and anger without any external triggers. You know what I'm saying? It's true. But my question to you is, what are you going to do about it? There is truly nothing new under the sun. Until next week, as always, walk in health and peace.